Hi everyone, welcome back to Make It Meaningful. I'm Garden Girl Jen Gallacher. So if you'll notice, I have changed the camera a little bit today so you could see a little bit better of a peek into my craft space. I always think it's fun to see how people create and where their creative space is, so I thought you might want to see a little bit more of my space. You can see a complete video tour on my personal YouTube channel if you ever want to see that. So this month the Garden Girls are talking about heritage storytelling. So whether it's using a photo from the past or telling a story of a legacy you want to leave your children, there are a lot of different ways to approach the heritage theme. Today, I'm going to be focusing on an Instagram photo that I shared this week for Throwback Thursday. Throwback Thursday, if you're not familiar with it, is an opportunity for you to share a photo from your past. And as I was looking through photos that I wanted to use for this month's theme, I came across my engagement photo. Now on May 21st, I will have been married 21 years, so imagine my surprise when I discovered this particular photo. So I thought it would be fun first to share it on Instagram. But then I realized that I could take any Instagram photo, especially for Throwback Thursday, and I can use them in my scrapbook layouts. Now I can either modernize the story and use modern colors and talk about how I feel about that photo now, or I can take a heritage approach and use vintage colors that were popular at the time the photo was taken, or come directly from the photo, and I could talk about how I felt then. So there are multiple ways to approach it. So let's go ahead and use my engagement photo in today's Make It Meaningful project video. So to start with, we're going to start with a sheet of 8.5 by 11 inch cardstock, and I've pre-cut this chevron craft pattern paper to fit in the center of it. You can see that I have a border around it. On the back is a bold red dot. I wanted a craft because it works as a great neutral, but I love that this is kind of a tone-on-tone pattern paper. Before I adhere all the way down, I want to add a yellow scallop border right to the bottom. I'll attach that. I'm going to bring in some of this lemon yellow to the layout. Then for the photo, I mentioned that I am using my engagement photo, and this will go here. And then I wanted to use a die cut, and I love this ampersand shape. It is actually a die cut shape. It is not a true type font. Sometimes in Silhouette you can take your true type fonts and you can type this out. So I'm going to design this, search by ampersand in the store, and it'll bring this particular cut up, which did all the work for me. Before I adhere that photo down, I want to adhere the ampersand. A nice big swirly font. Then behind the photo, I'm actually going to place a tag, and I'm going to mount the photo on it so that it's centered and that tag sticks up just a bit. And then we'll add adhesive to the back of this and stick it onto the layout. I also want to add a nice die cut shape, and this is a die cut shape from Heidi's Swap. You could also cut this with your Silhouette machine, and because it is a thin cardstock weight pattern paper, I am curving it a little bit, and I want it behind my cuts and behind my photo. Curve it just a smidgen. I'm also going to add to the top of that photo a shaped paper clip. There are a lot of different kinds of clips and things you can get in the store. And then to the top of the tag, I'm going to add a little bit more embellishing with a teal clothespin and a natural clothespin. Now something fun that I wanted to do on this particular layout is I wanted to do some die cutting. And what we're going to use is we're going to use a manual die cut shape. It is a flower shape. And then I'm going to use some tissue paper, and this is just tissue paper that I got at Target. And using the folds that already come in this tissue paper, I would fold it over a couple of times, pick the flower that I want to cut, place it only around that flower, and obviously it will go on to some of these cuts, and then I'll run it through my die cut machine. Follow your die cut machine to get the proper measurements for this. Once you have die cut several of them, and this is the smallest flower, what you'll do is you'll start layering them by off-centering each layer one above the other until you get about 3 or 4 or 5, depending on how thick you want to go, layers. Then to the center, I am simply going to adhere them all together just with a staple. I'm going to cover that staple later with something else. This is how it looks. And then using your fingers crumple up each layer at a time, and the tissue paper will create a fun dimensional shape when you do this. We're going to create some teal flowers for this project. So it's crumpled and a little bit messy, and you can crumple it as much as you want, but it gives a nice dimension to the shape. I'm also going to be using a doily on the page, and I'm just using a regular standard doily shape. We're going to place this kind of in the center. Then I have already pre-cut with my die cut a few flowers. One is a large, and we'll place that right in the center. And then we'll add to that back part of the staple, we'll add just a glue dot. Be careful when you're adding adhesive because it can tear. And then I'll add a second layered flower. Okay, bring it up. These will get a little mushed as you put them in your scrapbooks, but it does still give it that dimensional look. We'll create a cluster. Now for the insides of the flower, we're going to do something fun. We're going to take some cardstock, and you'll need fringe scissors, and you're going to cut in, depending on how big you want each fringe part of the center to be. I'm going just a little shy of 1/2 inch. Make sure each time you cut about the same distance. We'll cut one more time. And then what you'll need to do is you'll need to take your paper trimmer, and you're going to trim that particular fringe, but you don't want to cut through the fringe. So leave about 1/8 to 1/4 inch just below that fringe. And then we'll start to roll it up. This is going to create the flower center. You don't need a lot. You can roll it a couple of times. I'm not going to use all of the fringe. I'm simply going to tear it off. And then using my glue, I'm going to adhere it together. Now you could use a hot glue gun or wet adhesive. I'm just using a glue dot. And I just manipulate it, place it on the inside, roll it around. And then to this bottom section, I'm also going to add another glue dot. And again, you need to manipulate it a little bit. Then that will go right in the center of the flower, and then using your fingers, start prying apart some of that fringe. And I've already done that for just a few of them. I have a larger one for the center. And then I have another smaller one for this other small flower. Again, manipulate the glue dot until you get it exactly how you want. You can just bend it back. You can use a hot glue gun if you want something that's a little more sturdy. Make sure everything's glued down. Then to the top of the flower, I'm going to add some stick pin hearts. Just a nice heart shape. And then to add to the flower cluster, I have die cut a few green leaves. And I don't know if you can tell on camera, but these particular leaves have a nice shimmer. They're a shimmery cardstock. And they're a little bit thin, so they kind of fall, but they also allow you to manipulate the cut a little bit. I'm going to tear them off and adhere them one kind of leaf cluster at a time until I get the look that I want. You can find all different kinds of cuts, and 2Piece also offers several exclusive die cut shapes. And you can just adhere adhesive to the back. I've already adhered several pieces of adhesive. And then to this bottom area, I already have one that I've added adhesive to. You can run it through a Xyron machine to give it a lot of good adhesive, or you can use a dot runner. And we'll manipulate this one a little bit, so we're creating this fun cluster. And then in this open space here, we're going to add the journaling. And it says, I love the word and. It implies together, it means connected, it means linked. And that is everything that we are. We together are an and, you and me. And that's why I used the ampersand on this particular project. I'll just adhere this right at the side. Thank you for joining me for today's Make It Meaningful video, in which we used an engagement photo for my Throwback Thursday on Instagram, and we used some modern embellishments to dress it up and give it a modern feel. We also included journaling about how I feel about being married, which allowed me to express a little bit of how I feel about my spouse as well. Be sure to subscribe to the Two Piece YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of these weekly videos.